On the previous segments of the morning ride, we have a lot to talk about, so let's get down to business. Once again, welcome. My name is Sharon MANDOR, and today I am joined in the studio by political affairs analyst. He's also the president and the founder of Open Forum, our regular Thursday analyst. Good morning to you, citizen Matthew Kofi O'Connell.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Sharon.
Good morning.
Always good to be here.
Yeah. I see Nigerians, there's mixed feelings in the air, but let's start with the sad one. We are grieving. Our Chief of Army Staff died yesterday at the age of 56. How did you take in this news?
Well, first of all, we have to just pray that God will give his soul repose. But then the story surrounding his health and even death was made public by a media house some time ago, and the federal government and the military said it wasn't true, and the people did not withdraw their release. One thing led to another.
But they didn't completely refute the entire thing. They just said he was still alive, though he was on a break because he had to go check out his health.
Yeah, and that is also raises more question about how issues surrounding public officers' health are managed. He was actually said to have been overseas. At least that was what we heard and we read. But when the federal government eventually appointed an acting person in his capacity, that also blew the whole thing. The fact that the rumored death must have been a reality. And the following moment, the man was elevated to a lieutenant general, the acting person, and more stories emerged until yesterday. The federal government said that Lagbaja had died, and that he died within the country. Yeah, not even overseas, that we heard that he was using medical care overseas. But be that as it may, anybody, even children die, elderly people die, young people die. So anybody at any time may be faced with the reality of life, but it should be well managed. So you don't give the impression that government, you don't expect truth from government. There's no big deal. When somebody like, Biden had health issues, he said it. And he would tell you what the problem was. We had Nelson Mandela. In fact, people were keeping vigil in the hospital that he was in and giving updates. So on this one, why do you try to manage or mismanage stories surrounding somebody's health? It's not the best. But he is actually normal. So be it a breaking news, like some people say, it's not a breaking news because we already heard that.
So you think that there's a possibility that he died long before yesterday?
I wouldn't want to say that, but we cannot also dismiss the rumors that made the rounds and the fact that if actually he was outside the country, when was he brought in? When was he brought back? That people did not know at such a level of an officer, and that he died, and the federal government is the one making the release. It's not tidy. That's just what I'm trying to say.
Another question
it's not be well managed.
Another question that people are also asking, based off of that, the fact that the federal government has said he died in Nigeria and all of that. At what point did he come into the country, and at what point did they appoint an acting Chief of Army Staff?
I just asked those questions, and the answers are blowing in the wind. It all boils down to inability of certain persons in position of responsibility not be able to manage some critical informations like that. Anything can happen to anybody. We've got military officers even killed in war front in the northeast fighting Boko Haram, and you don't hide such things because these people belong to a family. Yes, they are officers of the military or whatever level of governance. They are first of all family heads. They are people own them. So if the family members themselves were part of the cover-ups, if there was cover-up anywhere, well, it's left for them. Whenever somebody dies, supposing he was a Muslim, once a Muslim dies, it's announced, and because the burial is to be conducted within 24 hours. I don't think Lagbaja was a Muslim, so I don't know. But whatever be the case, it wasn't well managed by my rating. It was not well managed at all.
Okay. Yeah. On the papers, the dispute between Ini local government and some communities in Abia State, and we have lost some lives in recent weeks because of this particular dispute that has gone on for a while. Do you have more insight on this?
Thank you very much for that question. The issue of boundary crisis between Akwa Ibom and Abia State, there used to be a very troubling one as well between Akwa Ibom and Cross River states, having to do with the whole of it too, and the neighboring Bupani local government. Even internal boundary issues within states, within the state itself, not interstate boundaries, there have been crises. One of them happened not too far from Headed. I went to that community to see things for myself. I was shocked. I was the only person on the road of that community with the commercial tricycle I went with. People had disappeared. Houses were burnt. Some of them just destroyed. A number of them burnt, including the palace of the village head, who's a very prominent senior citizen, a former permanent secretary in Akwa Ibom State Civil Service. And guess what? That very incident was not seen in the media. I would say it was not even reported within the state. So what am I trying to say? Most of the boundary crises that we have in the state have not been properly reported. And the one involving Ini, local government area, and Abia State, I think Arochukwu, yeah, which is the boundary community, has been on for several years. I had been interested in that matter at the point I had a ceremony there, so I went to that community and I asked questions, and the things I heard worried me. Why? Most residents in boundary communities are prepared for eventuality at any given time. The youths there on both divides are prepared at every given time, which makes it very risky that you cannot just feel you are seeing a young man not knowing that you are looking at a fighter, because he may be attacked at any time. So he goes out prepared. And there are arms in these communities across. But definitely there is always a side that suffers greater casualty. And since they don't have any way to go to, they still remain there. What does that tell us? It tells us that we don't have enough interest of government in what goes on in the boundary in communities that can safeguard the life of citizens, especially when there are clear disputes. The meeting by the Akwa Ibom State Deputy Governor and the Director General of National Boundary Commission, I think Surveyor Adamu, yeah, National Boundary Commission, NBC, Surveyor Adamu, the discussions there really give me cause for concern. Why? The Abia State Deputy Governor, Emeke, I think that's his name, I've forgotten his first name, made some statements after Deputy Governor, Her Excellency Senator Akune Yarani has spoken that they are concerned about the issues of Akwa Ibom boundary because of the reoccurring killings and annexation of lands, that the matter should be resolved. This is one of the things that the Abia State Deputy Governor said during the talk. He said that he highlighted that there are 6 autonomous communities in what he calls Itumba Uzo and Enquiry Kaobo in Abia State, which have reportedly faced pressure to integrate with Akwa Ibom State despite historically belonging to Abia. We have Itumbuzo in Ini. I was supposed to have made a contact with my resource person in Ini. I could not reach the person before getting to the studio. So I don't know if there is an Itumbauzo. The way it is spelled is not like the Tumbuzo, which is over here. And it says that those 6 communities belong to Abia, and that the Akwa Ibom is trying to lay claim. I've never heard that before, despite the fact that I know that there are some communities which historically were part of Akwa Ibom state, and the people there, they are not even Igbo speaking, and they belong here, but because for whatever reasons of maybe conquering or whatever, they are there. I will come to that, having to do with a particular community in Okanafon local government. I will come to that later. So having said that, he went on to say that since the inception of the Abia Akwa Ibom State interborder dispute, Akwa Ibom State has been unable to provide authentic documents proving the areas were ever under its administration. That was still the Deputy Governor of Abia State speaking. And he emphasized that past verification exercises in 2001 and 2002 had affirmed Abia's claim, especially in sectors that have become volatile due to political tensions in the region. I did not see the response, the immediate response. At least the media house that reported it has not mentioned what was the direct response of the Deputy Governor of Akwa Ibom State over this. So I want to use this opportunity to draw the attention of the Akwa Ibom State government, the civil society, our traditional rulers, that please, this is a very critical issue. This matter was not discussed in one meeting somewhere, that records were not taken. And if we have, which I'm sure we have, the necessary facts, the records of whatsoever had transpired, follow up to that, so that historically, I'm sure Her Excellency, she's quite exposed, she's very brilliant, very stable human being. Maybe she must have made some statements and possibly something will be done, but on her part, as the voice of the people, a voice that speaks on policy issues, we are appealing. We will also follow this up at certain quarters to be sure that the needful is done. I mentioned something about a community in Okanafon, local government area, that are not Ibibio or Anang speaking. I'm not sure you've heard of such. Yes, they claim to be Igbos, but they are in Akwa Ibom State. I personally had raised issues about that because they speak Igbo. The community island has an Akwa Ibom State. That community should be called by that name, and then I think that last dispensation, or not too long ago, they produced a councillor for that ward, and Igbo man was a councillor. I'm sure I'm not wrong, because in Akwa Ibom State. So if the issue was that during the boundary delineation, the boundary people made the mistake to bring a community that's supposed to have been in Abia State, understand, to add to Akwa Ibom State, because by the time I met the topmost community leader there and asked, he said that matter got to court and this was the outcome and all of that. So how do you resolve that? Boundary adjustment. The people can be moved back to where they really belong, so that in future you don't have crisis, because populations keep growing. There may just be a small number of persons who, by virtue of capacity and otherwise, they are able to produce maybe the village head, and because of zoning principles, they say, this I think that is called Ohoibu or something like that. I hope somebody will help us as we go on when you open the phone lines. Now, it got to their turn. They said, zoning of councillorship seats, it should come to our community, no matter whatever number they are. Yeah, they said, yes, you deserve it. And they gave it to them. They produced a councillor. So, those are some of the issues. But most importantly, whatever was discussed at that Lagos meeting, nothing is as important as the challenge that has been thrown by the Abia State Deputy Governor.
Let me just make under one of the things that some of the things that he said. Let me just bring up one of the quotes. He said that since the inception of Abia Akwa Ibom interstate border dispute, Akwa Ibom State has been unable to provide authentic documents providing these areas were under its administration, and he emphasized that verification exercises in 2001 and 2002 had affirmed Abia's claims, especially in sectors that have become volatile due to political tensions in the region. So they are still laying claims to this particular part of Akwa Ibom State.
That's the code I took, and that is the challenge which we must take up. It's very important, and nobody can shy away from that. Otherwise, it will become a historical fact that we were challenged to show evidence and we did not have it, which is not true. And most of even the people resident in those places, the language that they speak will tell you where they belong, and their culture, the language, the culture will tell you where they belong. So there's need for that to be corrected. And in that same vein, there is this advocacy that I've been raising, which we just hope will have the ability to mount appropriately. Are you aware that in the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission data or names that are used to share revenues to local governments, that in Akwa Ibom State, a local government that was named Ekwetai far back in 1989 and thereabout, when it was first created, before it became Nseretai, the name of Nseretai local government area is erroneously recorded as Ekwetai, which is wrong. And I'm even surprised that they keep giving allocation to an unexisting Ekwetai. So that should also be corrected. I am using this medium to appeal to the Ministry of Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs and the government of Akwa Ibom State to do something about it, because those in local government don't care. As long as money comes, they don't care. Even if money does not come, they will be sitting down and looking for someone to come and help them. I think the same thing happens to Eseleke. I think it's called Okwo. That was the name during that 1989 period where local governments were created here and there. And a state in the north or north central, that should be, I think, Kwara State, they have also raised issues about their name. It's not a Hausa enclave, but that name I learned has to do with Hausa, was it mountain or whatever? I have researched on that. I think I have it somewhere. So Kwara people are demanding for the state to be renamed because is it Kwara or Kogi? One of those states, either Kwara or Kogi, they want that state to be renamed because the name was given to them from an Hausa word, which they are not Hausa speaking. You understand? Like Obiopo, local government in Rivers State, they actually had their name corrected recently. It was misspelled. So why do we keep quiet that our one is not only misspelled, it's complete an error. Ekwetai for Nseretai, or maybe Okwo for Eseleke. Those things should be done, and it should be done as a matter of priority, because we can't see things that are wrong and we just say this doesn't affect money coming in, let it continue.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much, Citizen.
You're
now,
welcome.
I would love to get your thoughts on the released minors by the presidency. We had this conversation on Monday before your program, and even when you came on board during the open forum,
absolutely, you
also
harped on it. But the prosecution of those minors, those children, if children are involved in criminal acts and their age does not permit them to be tried in the high court, conventional court meant for adult, the law has children's court, juvenile court, which such children can be tried, and they may not necessarily be paraded in camera and all of that, and you don't also retain them in prison custodies. They are centers that children, underaged young persons are kept pending their trial in the juvenile court. So what we have been against has been bringing those malnourished, sickly, hungry children, youths of between 12 and 16 and maybe 17